Americans don't know how to weep today. They don't want to weep today. All they know how to do is to be happy. They're waiting for some kind of entertainer to come around and tickle their ears and cause them to feel good inside. But the day's coming, ladies and gentlemen, when we shall know what it is to weep sore in the night. What do you mean? When you look around and see your children have been killed. Look around and see your little baby's brains have been dashed out in the streets of your town. You look around then and see, and you'll find that you don't have any friends left. All you've got's enemies. You say, what are you talking about? I'm talking about nothing more than the communists take over America. That God will allow to happen if Americans don't come back and serve God while we can. And the time's drawing near. The days of our revival are shortly to be over. If we don't serve God now, it'll be like the children outside of that ark that day. I believe the greatest prayer meeting this world ever knew took place outside of Noah's Ark. They said, God, we believe you now. Lord, we know that the floods come. We feel the rain. God, let us in. But God didn't let them in. He let them drown. You know why? Because they wouldn't come back to God while there's time. And I believe time's running out. And there are many preachers who say it's too late to repent. But I believe there's still yet time. I believe God would yet spare America. But if not, I want you to see what God said I'll do to you, because you will not serve me. He goes on down in verse 4 and said, the ways of Zion do mourn, because none come to the solemn feast. He said the church is empty. For 70 years a Jew didn't go inside the temple. Why? Because God padlocked it. Because the day and hour when they could have gone to the temple, the day they could have come to serve God gladly, they wouldn't serve God. And now the church is closed. The day's going to come in America where many of you are going to try to go to church and you wish the doors were open, but they'll be closed. Why? Because you wouldn't go down to God's house when God opened them freely and when God gave you opportunity to go down to the house of God. And notice the Bible said in verse 7, Jerusalem remembered in the days of her affliction and of her miseries all her pleasant things. For 70 years, all that the children of Israel had to look forward to was their memory. The day's coming when all you're going to have to look forward to in America is not another paycheck. It's not another family gathering, but to remember how it used to be when God blessed the land and when God favored the land. Notice, God said they remember. They remember how it used to be. He said, but notice it, the adversaries saw her, and they did mock at her Sabbaths. The day's going to come when you'll wish that you'd get a Sunday off. And you're going to say to your communist oppressor, please, sir, let me have the day off. You'll say, well, he'll say, what's the day? You'll say, it's Sunday. Well, what's so special about Sunday? That's God's day. God's day? Who's God? And they'll start mocking the God that you used to mock. You see, Christians in America mock God now. They take God's day to work, or God's day to play, or God's day to catch up on their sleep. And the day's coming when the communists will take God's day and mock you and laugh at you, and you'll work around the clock 100 days straight, 16 and 17 hours a day, till you fall in your tracks. Why? Simply because you wouldn't serve God gladly with plenty when you could. Now, I'm fixing to get into a section that I wish I didn't have to talk about. Because God said it, though, we must look at it. God said, if you won't serve me with joyfulness and gladness of heart because you got so much, He said you will serve your enemies and you'll serve Him hungry. Americans don't know what it is to be hungry, but we shall know. We don't know what it is to find little children with bloated stomachs saying, Mama, Daddy, I want something to eat. I must have something to eat. I cannot stand it any longer. But my friend, you will know in the book of Lamentations chapter 2. Notice this in verse 11. Mine eyes do fail with tears. My bowels are troubled. My liver is poured upon the earth for the destruction of the daughter of my people, because the children and the sucklings swoon in the streets of the city. They say to their mothers, where's corn and wine? When they swooned as the wounded in the streets of the city, when their soul was poured out into their mother's bosom. The day's going to come, mothers, when you're going to hear your little child say, Mama, Mama, give me something to eat. Mama, I'm hungry. Mama, let me have some bread. You say, preacher, I'll get it for them. There's no place to get it. If your child gets hungry now, you go to the cupboard and get him something. If there's nothing in the cupboard, you go to the deep freeze. If there's nothing there, you go to the store. But the day's coming in America when your little children and your grandchildren are going to holler, Mama, give me something to eat. And there'll not be any bread anywhere. And they'll cry themselves to sleep. And in the morning, they'll cry themselves for breakfast, and there is none. They'll say, Mama, I've got to have bread to eat. You can't go to the fields because they have been bombed out. You can't go to the stores. They're in the hands of the enemy. And you'll say, oh, give me a piece of bread. And your captors will say, get on and mind your own business. Oh, my friend, I could preach this message in some countries today, and they'd know what I'm talking about. I could preach this message a few years in America, and you'll know what I'm talking about. You'll know what it is to be hungry and have no bread.